your worst story from the "throw him in the pool, he'll learn how to swim" parenting style. 2 days after I graduated high school, I came home to an empty house, all my stuff in a U-Haul because my mom and stepdad moved without me. I have been financially independent ever since, but a heads up would have been nice. My stepdad would get hammered and make me drive him home. I was 14 and couldn't drive stick, and he was like, "You'll figure it out." This happened maybe 3 times. Edit, since everyone keeps asking, yes, I got home safe every time. Yes, I drive stick like a champ now. Everything from 3 on a tree to an unsprung 3-puck, I'll get you home. This actual thing. I was a lifeguard as high schooler. Some parent did this to their 5-year-old. Parent thought the kid was fine, because he wasn't splashing around, he was bobbing up and down with his arms going straight up, and straight out. That actually means they're drowning. Had to jump in and grab the kid, who had swallowed significant amounts of water, and call an ambulance to check the kid out. Parent didn't want us to call the ambulance, but we told him it was the ambulance, or the police, because what he did could be considered child endangerment. Dad was losing his shit, screaming at me, a 17-year-old girl. Owner of the pool saw this, and he, former Navy dude, got up in the guy's face. Parent was banned from the pool for life. To this day, I'm convinced the guy was completely hammered. It's amazing how stupid people are. At a party, some kid pushed my little brother, around 5 I think, into a pool when he couldn't swim. He was walking around it to grab a ball he was throwing. Kid did it because adults were doing it, by the way. Adults saw my brother get pushed in and start bobbing up and down. I distinctly heard someone say in a super chill voice, "Oh, he can't swim." I have never in my life moved so fast, jumped out of my chair, jumped into the pool in my clothes, and grabbed him. I was furious. I actually used to be a swim teacher in college, teaching private lessons in people's backyards because of parents who had thrown their kids into the pool to sink or swim. It was usually moms calling me for help because they heard from a friend of a friend that I was able to teach their kid and get them to like the water again in about a month or less. One kid, he was 7, I had to sit with him on the pool deck the whole first lesson and bring buckets of water to him. His dad had dunked him multiple times and insisted that his son would just figure it out eventually because that's how he learned. Needless to say, he was never home when I was there. The mom had me come while dad was at work. 4 weeks later she had me come later in the afternoon so he would come home towards the end of the lesson. His dad saw his son swimming and cried happy tears. He had no idea I had been there 3 days a week for a month. My favorite student was a 70-year-old man who wanted to do a triathlon but never learned to swim because his dad threw him in as a child. It took about 3 months total, a lot of hand-holding on the steps and shallow end. But he finally achieved his goal and I got to cheer him on at the finish line. I still remember how each of my students clung to my arms and clawed at my neck in their first lessons. I never dunked or forced anyone out of their comfort zone. My lessons had to be customized for each student to keep it fun and relaxing. The trauma in their eyes was haunting though. It stayed with me, and I never force anything on my kids that they aren't ready to do. It's about trust, not force. They didn't want to teach me to tie my shoes, because my mom said I had to learn that myself, so should you. Just walk it off. My dad, when I developed a big nasty cyst on my toe when my mom was away on a stressful trip. She was not pleased to come back and have to immediately drive me to the hospital. It got to the point where I took one step on it and almost passed out. He apologized afterward. Got a sandwich from a really good sandwich place and I forgave him. Now I laugh about it. I was always a picky eater growing up. One time my mom sat me down with a small bowl of almonds and told me I couldn't get up out of my seat until I finished it. I insisted that I hated them and they were making my mouth itch. She thought I was just being difficult. I just started to swallow the almonds like pills because my mouth was so itchy from chewing on them. A couple years later I saw an allergist and discovered I was allergic to tree nuts. 7 years old. Had an asthma attack at our camp in the middle of the night. At that time, treatment for an attack was a nebulizer machine that required electricity, which we didn't have at our camp. My parents kept telling me that I just had to calm down and breathe better so the attack would go away on its own. They only intervened hours later because they couldn't sleep because of all the noise I was making as I choked and gasped for air. We drove 3 hours back to our house, passing multiple hospitals along the way because they were embarrassed that I was in such bad shape and blamed me for just not breathing properly. Fun times. When I was 10 my parents had my siblings. Twins, baby girls. Within 2 weeks I was babysitting them 12+ hours a day, at least 5 days a week. Not only that. Since I was already babysitting my aunt dropped off, her 1 and 2 years old too. So I, who had no prior experience babysitting or caring for kids, was now babysitting 4 kids under 3. What a literal shit show that was. My younger cousin, 4 at the time, was a climber and always needed help getting down. His dad told his mom to leave him. He'll either learn how to get down himself or stop climbing. Cousin ended up climbing onto the roof, fell off, and got impaled on a fence pole. One very expensive trip to the ER and he now has a cool scar on his thigh. Edit, he did not stop climbing, he just got better ways to get off the roof. My stepmom walked us, me, sister, brother 10 to 12, deep into the woods and left us there to learn survival skills. We thought we were all out on a hike, then she distracted us, and ran away. We wandered into camp hours later. We knew how to get back but searched for hours worried that something had happened to her. She was drinking margaritas and smirking. My mom's whole parenting style was sink or swim, but funny enough, it's when my mom tossed me in the pool. The summer between 1st and 2nd grade my family moved somewhere with a pool. My mom was adamant that I had learned to swim as a baby. So she bought floaties for my younger sister and refused to buy any for me because I already knew how to swim and was too big for floaties. When I refused to get into any part of the pool I couldn't walk in, my mom called me from outside the pool and promptly grabbed me and tossed me into the 6-foot end. And surprise! I didn't know how to swim. I remember splashing twice, hearing my mom yell at me to stop panicking, then I went under and tried swimming to the surface like I'd seen in movies and eventually got my head a bit above water. Coughed out a bunch of water, and started screaming for help before I went under again. My mom told me to stop making a scene and swim towards the edge. I made it to the edge and couldn't pull myself out of the pool, so my mom yelled at me to swim to the shallow end. When I tried to grab onto the edge to just pull myself to the shallow ends, my mom kept taking my fingers off the edge and yelling for me to stop playing and just swim. When I finally got to the shallow part, my mom and family just went, "See, you still remember how to swim. You never forget." Every time I asked my parents to explain something as a kid, I was told either you're smart, you'll figure it out, or you just don't want to do it. Any attempt at maturity was met with either flat-out laughter or being told that I was too young to worry about that. Cue me turning 18, and suddenly I'm expected to be an adult, get a job, pay taxes, and all that jazz. I asked where in the hell do I start, and they got pissy because I apparently hadn't figured anything out. Huh? Wonder why? Parent, I wasn't taught how to do that and I turned out fine. No, you didn't. You did not in fact turn out fine. They threw me in the pool. I drowned. I needed CPR. They let me use my floaties after that. My dad bought a new house after my parents divorced. Behind us were 2 kids close in age, 9 to 10 I think, with me that used to frick with me every time I visited. One day, they hopped my dad's fence, pushed me down, and stole my basketball. When I told my dad, he decided to go talk to their parents to get my ball back. Oh wait. That's what normal dads would do. My dad, a former pro boxer, made me fistfight both of them one at a time and earn my basketball back. At age 4 my father decided that my sister and I should learn to tie our shoes. He made us stand there for hours trying to do it, crying. We just weren't quite old enough. My mom forced me to drink milk and she thought I just hate healthy stuff and only prefer junk food. The thing is, I always loved veggies but I also like junk food. Basically I love food except for milk. I just couldn't consume milk, it'd make me vomit in the end. I'd have sudden acid reflux not being able to handle it. She thought I was acting to escape but I just hated it. Turns out I'm lactose intolerant and my mom still thinks I'm making that up just because she can't let go of her ego. When I was about 5 or 6, I was very sick with a flu. Fever, vomiting, sweating, congestion, it was awful. There was some mix-up at the pharmacy, and they thought I was my father and gave him adult medication, basically these giant horse pills. Now, normal child medication for things like this are syrups and chewable shit for obvious reasons. My dad comes home and tells me I have to take these meds. I have a hard time getting them down, almost choking a few times. My dad got frustrated and literally started shoving these huge pills down my sore throat with his angrily shaking fingers. I started crying. My nose was stuffed so I could only breathe through my mouth. I remember my dad's wedding ring banging against my teeth, eyes watering, gasping for air while looking at my mom for help. Eventually, I coughed it back up, crying and throat on fire. I remember my mom demanding an apology from my dad, who just said, "Well, he's going to have to learn to take pills like that sometimes anyway," and stormed off. Damn. I haven't thought about that story in 20+ years.